Let's go for the actual score. Europa, natural
Well, now, we don't have our dear host Nemo Jones with us. He's a little under the weather. I'll just take over while we get Yvonne up in the place. And yes, right on time. Right
Right.
on.
Hold on.
And speaking of rights,
That's it. I'm
are
in.
we talking about rights of initiation or just basic human rights, constitutional rights, rights that have been written by man, rights that have been written by God, rights that are human or women's rights or man's rights or animal rights? What does it all mean, and how can we really synthesize and actualize what it really means to be living as a sovereign human being, who understands their rights and all these things? So wanted to get the ball rolling for anyone who wants to start off with possibly the definition of right, what it actually means, and also kind of how people misconstrue what it actually means. And, you hear politicians talk about freedom and rights and all these things, yet how much of it is it like encroached upon or limited and all these things, right? So
How right is it?
yeah, but first off, we gotta, let's introduce ourselves, starting with Vuk, where y'all from and all that good stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, hi, I'm Wukan Kempfer from Germany.
You're muted, Oscar.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm Oscar, and I'm in Denmark, and it's a pleasure to be with you. Sorry, I'm a bit stoned, bit far, but yeah, the topic rights, and sorry, Yvonne, right at you.
Cheers, Oscar. Yeah, I'm Yvonne, and I'm from the UK.
All day. Looking forward to what you got to say. But yeah, I'm out in the Mediterranean Bay, south of France. And yeah, Oscar or Vuk, I know y'all are pretty versed on some definitions and language and terms and literacy, etymology. So feel free to inform anyone listening about what is a right exactly. Mon ami.
Mark defines it as any action that does not do harm to other sentient beings. And I think that's the correct one, the correct definition, because when you just like see it from a spiritual perspective, or like mental perspective, if you so will, we are all like part of creation of like our universe, and it's good to be in the like to be creating, but destruction is like the shadow part of us, or of like of actions that are not rights, they are wrongs or wrongdoings, and because they result in harm to other sentient beings. And I think that's very important, really, to be clear on this, because like yeah, plants are sentient beings for sure, but they do not feel pain, for example, as like animals would do, and yeah, you don't have to kill a plant usually to get its fruits, so you don't have to like cut down a cherry tree to get the cherries. So I think that's very an important aspect of it to like be clear on. And in the like holy scriptures, quote unquote holy scriptures, it is pretty clearly stated with what was it? LOTUS, do not murder, and to like kill an animal that is not attacking you is murder by definition. I think so. It's pretty easy, but from the definition side, and to be like to get it really clear. But the issue is with our society that tries to like blur the lines between things. So if your life is not under threat, do not do any harm to any sentient beings. It's so easy. Or like we all know the golden rule. How's in English? Do unto others as you want to others be done to yourself. I don't know the correct English term it is on this point, but you cannot use it in both in negative and positive polarity, and that describes a right or righteous action in pretty well in some.
Right on. Yeah, I actually, I think I'm sharing a slide, Derek. Can you see it? Thank you, Mr. Producer. Yeah, this is a slide I just quickly grabbed from Jaina ESP's website, and it's simple graph delineating the difference between right and wrong, and it's showing how right can be something that is pertaining to whether or not information is true. So if I'm saying that I got the right answer to a certain question, or that I don't know what the right answer to a certain question is, well, then I'm speaking about whether or not I know the truth regarding it, which is not a coincidence that it's related to, that it's the same word that one uses when it comes to morality. And as you said, you had the book, the definition that Mark Passio from What on Earth is Happening provides is that an action, a right is an action that does not initiate wrongdoing or harm or violence. And yeah, a simple example of that is, of course, with animals. Do we take something that is not ours when we take the life of an animal? Do we cut down the cherry tree, so to speak, just to get the cherry, right? Is it the initiation of harm or violence upon another being? And the answer is yes, and therefore it cannot be moral, because at least according to that definition, and it is a good definition of right behavior. If I'm looking just at a dictionary on my, like, just here on my browser, the first dictionary I found online was the Merriam-Webster dictionary, and the adjective of right, because yeah, a right is an adjective to what is it that we're speaking is right? Is it information? Is it behavior? And if we're speaking about behavior, right behavior, then what is meant is that it's in accordance with what is just, what is good or proper. And it's funny that in Danish, the word justice is actually right behavior. Like if you break it down, justice is ret, which means right, and fair, which means behavior. It's actually like to fare, like when you say farewell, or I'm going like on a traveling, it's kind of kind of the same, but also behavior. I don't know. Maybe I'm mixing it a bit up here, but yeah. So I think that's funny that in Danish the word for justice is right in front of your nose. It's right behavior. If you want justice, then you have to behave in a way that is according to what is right, what is moral. And another slide I want to bring up is see if I can find it here, is just quickly this graph of the polarity of natural law expressions, where the positive polarity is begins with love, the expansion of consciousness. This is where we explore such a thing as what are rights, what are my rights, and then when we come to know what those rights are, when we accept the truth and the like the real what our rights really are, the reality of our of what behaviors we can do that do not initiate harm, then we can integrate that, and we can make decisions in our lives that are in harmony with that knowledge, with that conscience, and so on. Then with that integration and that decision making, we then create external anarchy, which of course just means the absence of rulers. No one is ruling upon another when people are ruling themselves, are living life based on principles. And what else can come out of that than good and order? But yeah, I think it's funny. The word right is really a word that I mean, I would probably imagine that it can be kind of offensive to tell someone they don't know what a right is, but I didn't know what a right was for a long time. I mean, in school I was taught that a right is like, for example, the rights that come from a piece of paper, right? Like Constitution, or like a Declaration of Human Rights from the UN. I mean, maybe that would be fun to speak about today a bit, is what those rights are. That, because I think that's a general answer I've gotten throughout the years when I've asked people what a right is. They brought that up as an answer, the UN Declaration of Rights. Maybe we should consider, if we find that interesting, to go through some of those and see what we think about them. What about you, Yvonne? What?
Well, it's funny that you should say that, because before I came on, I was I think it was last year sometime, the Scottish government, they brought in the Convention of Human Rights of a Child, and I read, everyone was elated that it had come through. But me being suspicious, I looked into it, and it reminded me of a stepping stone to 1984, really, because every child should have a right anyway. All human beings should have a right. Why does it have to be put in a legislation or into law? And especially having connections with Scotland, it's the most children, adults in Scotland and throughout the UK, but specifically Scotland, that they don't have nothing. So hence why everyone got so excited that children are going to start getting rights. They're going to have a voice. But when you look into these human rights legislations, they're definitely a stepping stone to some kind of globalization control, because specifically with this one, if local authorities or the government don't give the child a right to medicine, don't give the child a right to education, don't give the child a right to blah, 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 then the Scottish government and local authorities are held accountable by a higher authority, USCA, basically, excuse me. So the Scottish government are now going to go out their way to make sure that children do have the right to medicine. But we have to ask the question, what medicine? We have to ask the question, what education? And they've got like a 3-year plan ahead of them in which they're training children through the schools of how to ask for their rights, or almost, in my opinion, grass up their parents if they're not fulfilling the rights that the children in the schools have probably been brainwashed for the last couple of years about what their rights are. So then the children are going to start going, well, I'm not getting that at home. I'm not getting this. I'm not getting that. Oh, my mum's decided not to vaccinate me. So I'm not getting the right to what my teachers are telling me in the classroom that I have a right to have. And then they're allowed to grass their parents up. So when I look at these rights that are coming forward from man-made laws, I'm always highly suspicious about them, that they're not rights at all. They're just ways of dictating and controlling. And
Don, those I didn't know about that, the child convention, right? When is this from? I found like an image where it's like kind of looks like that sustainable goals kind of thing, like it's very colorful.
Exactly. Yes, it's exactly. So they are brainwashing the kids that they have a right, say, to fresh air. So if
that sounds
over the
awesome,
next,
though. I think everyone has rights to fresh air.
Absolutely, but it does tick the boxes for another agenda 2030. So the children in the next generation will be quite happy to be locked down in a 20-minute city because they're now fulfilling the right of the child to have fresh air. I know it all sounds wonderful, but they don't give a fuck about children. Let me tell you another quick story and then I'll pass it on. I was down at my son's last week and I don't normally watch telly, but he said, oh, Mum, watch this. So I started watching, I wrote it down, what it's called, 24 Hours in Custody. And this is how much rights children have in this country and probably all the other countries around the world. They went in specifically to a section of the law enforcement that tracks down on child pornography online. And they managed to get warrants to go into people's houses that they were picking up, that they were downloading indecent images. And so they went in there and there was one particular guy, he had over 2,100 images that he had created and was selling on and passing on of child pornography, including babies. And while they were raiding him, they also came across like loads of cocaine that he was creating and dealing with. And the interesting thing was that they decided to arrest him on the cocaine because they knew that the cocaine would get a higher sentence, whereas the child pornography that he was creating and selling on and pushing on, he would only get community service for.
That's
so did
insane.
they give
That's insane. Like that the punishment for something
money.
that is like pedophilia or even like no, I know that this maybe isn't like a direct case of like sexual abuse on like another, but it is still related in that field, and that punishment would be so, what's it called, like trivial, like so like it wouldn't be so serious. And I can only add on to that, and I know that in Denmark it's very similar to that the punishment for instance such a thing as like child porn, it's not, well, that's not to say how you're treated once you're in prison, but the duration of the sentence is very little. Anyways, I thought I'd ask about maybe we should go through some of those those rights and speak a bit about them. I think I found like a poster of it on well, if people are feeling up for going through that. I don't know if it's relevant.
It's up to you.
Well, yeah, sure, but hold on, because we have Param in the place to be, and he's a French.
Sorry, I didn't see you there.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. Neither
No,
did I from the get, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, having a little problems with the camera.
Yeah, no worries. Your voice is equally important regardless, you know. So did you want to share, you know, some thoughts on what anyone else said, or just, you know, anything initially in regards to rights?
Yeah, I'll be the ghost for tonight.
Ha! Yeah, no worries. Wouldn't be the first. But,
Yeah, I just wanted to a little detail. Vuk started to bring up the definition of the right, and then very unconsciously maybe, but Oscar made a little precision, and I think it's really important that there are three words to underline. The definition of a right is an action, because people think it maybe is a thought or an emotion or just something, but it's an action. So it concerns our actions, our behaviors. And then that doesn't initiate, because initiate is another very important word, because you could be aggressive in a circumstance where you are preyed upon. So somebody started. So the same behavior in the situation where somebody started the aggression, you have the right to be aggressive in response. In that case, I don't know if you see what I mean. It's there's a behavior which is a right when you have first been attacked. I mean, physical aggressivity, aggressive-ness. I don't know if you can wrap your head.
yeah, you're talking about, you know, like breaking the divine feminine essence of the non-aggression, non-violent principle, but defending it with the masculine principle of self-defense.
Yeah, exactly. Just aggressiveness when nobody did anything to you. Of course, that seems like you're starting something. It's just the idea that to initiate, because there's a lot of behaviors when they are not initiated, but somebody else did. It's like you have to put it into perspective, into the circumstance where a behavior is called as a transgression or is not. I don't know if you have the feel of the little subtlety of the idea of initiation, that initiates, that starts the thing. Anyway, starting the whole thing, and the N word, of course, to include the animals as sentient beings is also a very important part of the definition. But I really feel there's three underlying words that should be beared in mind: the action, initiate, and sentient beings at the end. It's just a little detail, but it bears it has an importance. I would stress to initiate, because in the end, if you try to put a situation into perspective, like you have two kids. I think Mark Pastor uses that example. You're like you're washing over a schoolyard, and two kids have been fighting amongst each other, and you come at the end, and you don't know what happened, but one of them is on the floor with a bleeding nose, and they both accuse each other for having starting the fight, to initiate. So, I mean, they've both been aggressive to each other at some point, but who started the fight is the whole issue here. And I think it's a good example for people.
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Word. It is all
s-
about the who initiates something,
exactly.
because it's all about who is in the wrong, and one
Exactly.
is not in the wrong for stopping something, and one has to use defensive force to stop violence. It's like that old saying, don't start nothing and there won't be nothing. But if someone starts something, you end it. There's space for everyone. Everyone is welcome to be here. It's not like that we're gonna exclude anyone from being on this beautiful planet, but not everything is tolerated, in the sense of not every kind of behavior is gonna be tolerated. If someone acts in a way that is wrong, that behavior must be stopped. It's not about the type of person, it's the type of behavior.
Exactly, and I think it's a very good example that like you're surveying a schoolyard, and to take that example to take that example, like how would you behave, and what decisions would you make? Would you like just punish both of them, or just let it be, or tell or really emphasize on the fact that, oh, I really want to know who started it. And if you have, there's maybe one lesson you could give the kids, is maybe that one. I mean, it matters who started it. So they eventually know that if you start shit, you probably end up with a bleeding nose, and the person coming along and that has the decision to put the blame on one of them will decide, oh, well, eventually know that, maybe you're probably the one with the bleeding nose, but you started it, and all I can say is you got what you asked for. I think Mark Pastor used that example, but it's really important to have that to bear that in mind. Is that who started it? Because otherwise, I mean, of course, if nobody starts anything, and the primary right to be left alone is respected by everybody, we probably wouldn't need the second person principle of masculine, the sacred masculine principle of self-defense. If nobody starts anything, well, we could just stick to one principle.
Right.
See, all right, okay. I have a few more points, but I'll pass on.
I just wanted to add the right to self-defense, or to defend oneself, is also a right, and a very unused one, especially here in Europe at the moment, I think. And that's yeah, thanks what you brought up with the initiation. I think it's also important to look at the end result. So like for sure it is important who has started it, but there are different forms of like violence, like psychological violence, like insults, oppression, coercion, up to like physical violence. And I think that's important to note that like one leads to another. Usually you when somebody like insults you with a bad joke, or like calls you names or something like that, you do the same to him, and so it like escalates upwards, more or less, until it gets like to physical. But I think that's also really important to look at who started at the very first like points, or at the very first timestamp, if you so will, with the violence, with the insulting, with the like coercion, pressuring, whatever you want to see as like stepping over the line. And I think that empathy is a big key in this, mm, or the lack of it is like very visible in our society, because most of us don't have enough empathy to really like think about when I do this, how will my person on the other side of the table feel about it if I do so? And I think that like um a bit more like um awareness for the surroundings and for like the people and the beings around you um would be very helpful for us all, I guess.
Yeah, totally. It's about kind of like reading the energy around you, reading the room, as people might say, and kind of harkens back to the golden rule. Do want unto others as you would want done unto yourself. Yeah, we have to kind of. Apparently, that doesn't apply to psychopaths and people that love to be manipulated and on some satanistic whatever it's called. I'm not even familiar with that stuff because I'm not down with that shit. But anyways, yeah, like there are these thresholds that we need to recognize and realize when it's like up in our face in regards to like our boundaries, our sovereign rights as a human being, as a multidimensional being, if you will, if you want more of that extra empowerment, but it's not that woo woo shit. If you really understand and tapped into that shit, you know what it is. But let's just keep it on 3D because we're kind of herded like cattle in a lot of the VACA nations and forced through needlecraft via VACA. You know what I mean? There's a reason why it's called that. La vache, piton de merde, mais c'est quoi ce piton de saloperie quoi? La vache, vaca is cow, and that's where they get the if look into the history of shit and the fraudulence of the something Jenner. I want to say Edward Jenner, but the forefounder of quaccination, and to impose these mandates is like a man or human being on a date with fucking slavery. We're being subjected and being sequestered and coddled or prodded into these head cages first and foremost via mind control, via gubernare, that etymology and all these things, and whatever the media be feeding us and whatever, and we're so conditioned and educated out of our rights and who we actually are, and led down the garden path of believing in false figures of savior and authority, especially, and to have people just kind of sleepwalk through life, through the matrix, on the hamster wheels, and through the rat race and all these things. Wow, you're successful, you made money and this and that, yet you haven't really come to much actualization of yourself because you haven't taken the time to properly know yourself. You haven't, which means you also haven't taken the time to know your rights. And the fact that isn't happening with a lot of people means that they are easily subjected to all types of manipulation and abuse. And it doesn't even have to be from the government. We do this to ourselves on a daily fucking basis, person to fucking person. Look at your average fucking broken family household. Do you think they understand and recognize and realize and respect their own family members' rights? I mean, how many fucking members have been molested within their fucking household? Like bodily autonomy. It's it goes way the fuck beyond the Me Too or Me Three movements. Or now people want to shave their heads and talk about abstaining from sex because their political clown lost a fucking election to the other clown. Wow, congratulations. We have more slaves bickering amongst other slaves. Like the carousel within the circus goes round and fucking round, and y'all are speeding it up at a level of a TikTokification through a goldfish attention span lens, and it's fucking sad. While all the while our rights are slowly dripping down the drains of fucking transhumanism and even just like the progressive liberalism and all this stuff, and y'all are crying over spilt milk that's sour as fuck because you need those abortion rights so fucking bad because you have a nihilistic hedonistic mind state because it's been programmed that bad, and you don't even understand and recognize or realize the rights of your own fetus within your fucking uterus, and you're worried about the government being all up in that shit. What about the government being up in the baby fucking like 100 times until they're like 20 years old through needlecraft? Do you not understand what the fuck is going on? This is beyond
Yeah,
spiritual warfare.
I really agree. It is spiritual warfare, and it is spiritual when an individual expresses anger of the wrongdoing. I totally feel you there, Derek, and it's actually kind of refreshing, even though that it is a lot to listen to. I'm like I doubt that you're always like this, but I think the expression of anger about wrongdoing is very appropriate, and I think it's only because there's so much ignorance and confusion regarding what a right is that an expression of anger about wrongdoing seems so inappropriate to the general public. And you touched also upon something that really resonated with me, which is that how can we love our family members or our friends? How can we love someone if we don't know our own rights and their rights? Because we know what a right is. If we don't know how to respect each other's rights, we don't know a very important thing about love, or like about respecting each other, about wanting good for each other, and that is something that you'd expect from a family member, but it's simply not the case, and we saw that with the vaccinations. And yes, you were correct about Edward Jenner being the father, you can say, of the first vaccine. And if people are interested in more information regarding the history of vaccines, I cannot recommend enough the tremendous work that Jana ESP, that's JANAESP, has done into researching and putting out incredible work regarding vaccines. And it's just so well put together, and there's just so many resources and references that you can that she references to that are just so much worth your time to learn about, because you're not dumb. I mean, you might be dumbed down, but it's not the same. Just like me, I'm fucking retarded, meaning like I'm slowed down. My development has been slowed down. As I said earlier, I was taught stupid shit like that my rights are from the fucking constitution, or are from government, or like our permissions. And that's one of the things that I really want to help the world understand, is the huge amount of difference there is between a privilege and a right. I don't give a fuck about privileges. People will call being fortunate a privilege, but it's not a privilege. Look at the word privilege, and that literally means a private law. There's no such thing as a law that only, like, if you're talking about real law, which means a condition that is immutable and is binding, something humans cannot create law. I cannot create law. That's something we should understand, is only the creator of the universe has that capacity to create laws. And it's not like the creator of the universe goes around and just making another law next morning. Just, hey, I'll make another law. The laws are simple enough that you can understand them, even though we might not be too quick to discover them. But it's not like the creator is torturing us. Who is torturing us is ourselves. We're creating all these stupid fucking privileges, but we can't create private laws. We're just making them up in our own minds and then treating them as though they're reality. Thing is, there is no such thing as, in reality, in nature, as as a privilege. The only way those can exist is through violence. And yes, again, I'll repeat it. Privilege. Look at the etymology of the word. It means private law, and that's very different from a right, which we're saying that's an adjective, meaning what is it that we're saying is right? Is it the information? Is it the behavior? If we're speaking about right behavior, what does that mean? Well, that means that it's in accordance with morality, meaning it's not immorality, because immorality would be to transgress what one has you could say what one can do without initiating violence. I guess that is the simplest way I can describe it right now. And the only way to get there is by thinking straight, is by getting your mind right. And the way we want to do that is through education. I don't know if someone touched upon this earlier, but it is I think it was you, Ivan, maybe that touched that we need to I don't know who touched upon this, but yeah, the importance of a moral education. And that doesn't have to be like someone fucking hitting your hands when you get something wrong. A moral education simply means that your inner knowing is nurtured, instead of the development being retarded by bullshit being programmed and indoctrinated into your mind. It means that you're encouraged to ask questions such as, would I want to be treated like that? That was Yuvuk who pointed that it's a understanding rights has a lot to do with empathy. It has a lot to do with how do I want to be treated. And I mean, I really like this topic. I'm glad we chose this topic. I don't want to rant too much, but I do want to say that I found some slides I thought would be interesting to share. One of them is from Mark Passio's podcast, What on Earth is Happening? He has an episode where he goes into right livelihood. I think it's episode 211. Of course, those episodes are best watched in order. But yeah, this slide here is a slide from that discussion or that podcast, and it has something to do with rights, because you can see that in the Buddhist tradition, there is that aspect of how do we live in a way that is good. How do we cultivate good in our life and not harm others? It's a lot about that, not harming, that the feminine principle of not initiating violence, right? And the only way to do that is by cultivating a right form of understanding and thought and speech and mindfulness. That's something I really want to become better at, is meditating more, becoming more mindful and present, and chewing my food more presently, and also doing these things with you, these live streams, more present, just being able to listen better to what is being said. Yeah, I thought I'd bring that slide up. Maybe I can just wait with the other things, but that was one of the things I wanted to bring up. I thought that was kind of relevant.
Yeah, Oscar, thanks so much. That was really cool. We got Jasper coming in from Frisia, Northern Netherlands. What's up, brother? Glad for you to jump on real quick. You want to say something? We're talking about, rights and everything. I know you were just following the live stream a second ago, so yeah.
I thought about it yesterday, like, oh yeah, the thing is happening, but because I went out of the group, I didn't really pick up on it much. So I have not prepared anything. So it's just pure, like I just felt wrong to join in. But yeah, no, I don't know what I can say about rights on the top of my head. But I think if I'll just listen to what you guys have to say about it, and maybe like something sparks up. But I just heard Oscar talking about laws and how humans can't create laws. I would differ. I don't know. I might miss some context. But Frisia, we had like laws that were like written down by the Holy Roman Empire, and these laws, they were like at a certain period they were written down under a kind of tree, like the Obstaltboom, it's called. It's a place in Germany, and it tells you about the significance of nature. So they symbolically write down the laws under this sacred tree. But these laws there are meant. So this is where I think I might differ from some of you, is that I think laws are necessary to govern people. But it's what is the case in these laws of the Frisian laws, if somebody reads it, which is by the way regional based. Um, if you study them, they always, the punishment is money. And so a lot of conflicts and a lot of things that happen around the world can be settled in that way, because if you get into and hustle with like a struggle with someone, um, it's often that things just get very vague, and the communication isn't quite clear. So in those moments, it's good to quantify through speech, or like to say, okay, you've harmed me such and such, and I think this amount of money would be sufficient to for me to accept what happened and move on and pay the debts that needs to be paid. But yeah, that's on the top of my head for now, at least what I can say about Frisian laws regarding rights. But yeah, I'm losing my
No,
resonance.
I think it's great.
also-
It's great to have some disagreement, because that is much more interesting than us just all agreeing with each other. So, can you go a bit more into what you mean when you say like that laws are necessary to govern? Can you define what you mean with laws in that context?
Yeah, so first, like, you have to look at like how are laws set up. Back in the day, and I've shared this in the group as well, there used to be a council, and in this council, everybody could partake. You did have to go to a certain procedure, so you do have to be at a certain age, just like in a lot of countries in the world, like in Greece, for example, in the past, and many Germanic tribes had the same, and it's also Iceland and like a lot of places. They all have this council, and it's called a thing. And in this council, they would make decisions. But I think eventually, I'm not sure about this part, but that they would make laws in the same manner. And these laws that were by the Holy Roman Empire, because it conquered Frisia and like a lot of places, it created laws based upon the regions that it overtook. So these Frisian laws, they were only for the people that lived between the Weser River, which is someplace in Germany, then the southern part, which is somewhere in like top Belgium, like southern Netherlands. Between that region, all of these laws, they would be there. So it's an important point that the laws are also within the climate. So if you're in another region, there are different laws. And there's like two things that are like strange about these laws that were written down in Frisian language, Frisian law, is that one is that the artists are more protected than regular people. So if you're a craftsman, like you have any craftsmanship, like a carpenter or anything else, whatever, stonemason, or you get more protection within these laws, as well as like women and men, they are treated equally, so they have the same amount of debt that they have to pay, regardless of their uh, regardless of their sex. But in most Germanic places, that was not the case. The women actually were protected more than men. So those are two things that outstand out of these laws. But that's at least what I would like. I have read like quite quickly through the laws, but they all have like certain prices that the person has to pay to settle disagreements. And also, like, if you know, like just to speak a bit more like Lucy, the Jordan Maxwell, and how it talks about the justice, the legislative power, how that's connected to the bank, and like the bench and the etymology of that. Yeah, so that's also telling like the bank and how the money is distributed is through law. So it also has this financial aspect to it. So that's what, at least speaking historically about it, that's what's being presented. And since I follow to an extent my tradition, I would also look back and say like that's the way to go. But the laws are not meant to be static. They need to change over time if necessary as well, and it's dependent on the climate and what kind of people. So that's really like where
But
where
for
people.
me, it sounds like you're speaking about customs, like you're speaking about certain ways of behaving rather than.
Wait, you said you're alluding, Oscar, to like moral relativism, right? Like this, and Jasper, you're talking about, you know, a time and place or an area or environment. You know, certain laws apply to these things, and like over time they evolve, devolve, whatever the hell, they change. Yet, you know, when this is Europa natural law, and we're talking about, you know, eternal axioms of truth, where these things don't waver to motherfucking nothing, you know, within or outside of this planet, solar system, galaxy, right? So, you know, all the geopolitical stuff aside, I mean, like, it's good to have a lot of context and pretext to these things in the history behind, like how, you know, from any country, you know, rights were given, you know, differently to men, women, and all these things. And yeah, Yvonne, I'd love to hear what your experience has been in regards to that, possibly, or whatever else is on your mind, because it's your turn and all that shit. Yeah.
Derek, so much is on my mind because obviously they're stimulating conversations. One, you brought up the medical profession, that stimulated loads of stuff about the injections or whatever. I could tell you a little story about when my youngest child, he was in school. I took him out of school eventually, but I thought putting him into junior school, you know, like little infant school, would be quite nice because they just concentrate on all the basics, reading and writing, etc. But at that time, I was a therapist. So when my youngest son was ever ill, I treated him with aromatherapy or homeopathy, and I gave him time off for his body to adjust and heal. And in this country, they've got laws that if you keep your child off longer than they feel is necessary, because education is the most important thing, then they call you in, basically. So there, in 1 year, he had about, from one illness, he had about 7 days off because I felt that that was what he needed. And then probably about 6 months later, he probably had about another 4 days off. So they called me in, which I refused to go in. I just explained to them that I treat my child naturally. And they were insisting that I got a medical certificate to prove that he was ill. And I said, I don't take him to the GP. I don't need to. I treat him myself. But because conventional medicine had, in our society's eyes, is more of an authority than treating them natural and letting their body deal with their imbalances, then they got social services in this country. Oscar, I think in another thing you mentioned about, we have social services in this country that if the authorities feel as though you're not putting the best interest of your child first and foremost, then they feel as though they have the right or the authority to come into your home and question you. But obviously, because like they invite you, and this is what people have to realize, it's not really law. They call it legislation in this country, and it's not law. And I didn't know all this at the time, but I knew in my being, it was my sovereign right to treat my child. I have the authority to put my child's best interests at heart. And going to the GP and taking their antibiotics, which to me is the first form of vaccination, because you are not giving the child's body a chance to balance its imbalances, right? Anyway, I refused to go along to any of their meetings, and I refused to partake in any of that. Whereas most parents, they would go along with it because they come across as this big authority. Soon as I said no, I don't comply. This is my choice. They never hassled me again. So you have to, I suppose it's like a self-actualization that you do have rights, natural rights. A lot of people don't realize that those natural rights, I'd call them God-given rights. You have a God-given right to make your own mind up. If you're not causing any harm to anyone, you're not stealing from anyone, then it's no one else's business.
Yeah, and
No
all that
one's.
means is that a world has been created, this world where we
Yes.
live, where we can act in a way that is not harmful to others, that does not violate others' lives and property and their life here on earth. That's what it means to say that we've been God-given rights. It's not
Or
Yeah.
free will choice, rather.
like
Absolutely.
a personal, entity who's like, oh, I fucking love you, Yvonne, just
Mhm.
person. I mean, it's not that there's love in this place, but it's not like, we're the chosen fucking people or something like that. It's just we're free. That's what it means. We're free to live in a way that is respectful of other people's, other beings' self-ownership.
It is really quite simple, isn't it? Really, natural rights makes things simple instead of, as I said before in these shows, all the man-made laws have completely obfuscated and confused
Well,
everybody.
I mean, there is sometimes alignment between the written down from man, where humans describe what is right, what is moral, and I mean, to the most basic example of that would be the man-made laws, which are enforced by order followers, but that are actually in alignment with morality, with something basic like don't fucking murder someone or don't steal from someone, right?
Yeah, but they don't get punished for it, do they,
They don't get
Oscar?
punished for it,
They
which
don't get
is-
fucking
yeah.
punished for it.
But my
But-
point is to say that sometimes there is alignment between what humans write down and what is actually true. That's not to say that it's because it's been written down that it is true, right? Like,
Mhm.
for example, the founding fathers of the U.S., like for example, Thomas Paine comes to mind. Like some of the things that have been written down are just the fucking bomb. Like you read that and you're like, holy fuck, that's amazing. So it's not like it has to be something like mystical. It's like people can discover it and can communicate it, and I guess that's also kind of what we're trying to do here, is explore what is moral and what are our rights, what is a right, and convey that to everyone who's listening, and also just to remember it, because we live in a world where we're constantly told that certain things are right that are not right, and the opposite, that certain things are wrong that are actually right. And I don't want to rant too much, but I do have some finishing thoughts later that I'd like to share.
I can't think. Sorry, Derek, go, because I've waffled.
No. I wasn't going to say anything. I know because Param, you're pretty much next on deck, trying to respect the little bit of the order and all that stuff. So
I'll
Okay.
shut up.
I'm here. I'm still here. I'm listening.
yeah, for sure, brother. Yeah. So
Okay, I'm gonna go back to this little scenery between kids and who's gonna be punished or not, and because Vuk said something really interesting. Is also the escalation factor. Are you gonna punch somebody in the face because he gives you a bad look or a bad word? No. And until you have the opportunity to just withdraw and go away, just no, okay, well, this guy is not somebody you can talk to. I'll just go away. At the moment it becomes physical, he doesn't let you go, but by physically pushing you back to where you are, well, then it becomes physical, and he's starting it. You see, but you have a sense of what I'm. You can eventually say, give a warning. Okay, you keep me here physically 1 minute, 1 second longer, then I'm gonna punch you in the face. You see what I mean? You can't just like, oh, because he started it, because he started insulting my mother and so forth and so forth. Well, okay, just ignore the guy, just leave. But if he doesn't leave you the opportunity to just leave, well, then it becomes physical, because he's holding you back from, and then
That's like
it's
the Hulk. The Hulk is no one wants to leave the Bruce Banner alone, and then he becomes the Hulk.
Yeah, but I think the distinction, it's very it's very very important to keep in mind that you're not just going to punch somebody for a bad look or a bad word. I mean, Latin people maybe get up real quick because of oh, you're insulting my mother, da 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 da. And then but as long as you could just avoid getting into a physical confrontation, just go. If he holds you back, I mean, every battle avoided is a battle conquered. and and again, with the I don't know if you follow up with what's going on in the world and Ukraine and everything, but they keep on insisting on labeling Russia's unprovoked aggression upon Ukraine, unprovoked everywhere, unprovoked, because they want to know that they want to let people know who started it. Well, and of course, if you don't know your history and you don't know how many UN United Nations bases or NATO bases are creeping all over all around Russia, of course, and that's a provocation, of course. But you leave that if you leave that out of the picture, then you can easily accuse Russia for the unprovoked aggression. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. And oh, something very interesting. I don't know if you have that in English, but in France, they're starting to put out the idea of the monopoly use of legitimate violence. If you can see the very dangerous association of words, la violence légitime, legitimate violence. I don't know if that doesn't come as a as something really strange in your head. I mean, that doesn't
It's
work
an
out.
oxymoron.
Exactly.
Legitimate
Exactly.
violence to
Exactly.
violate someone else's right is never fucking legitimate. So yeah.
And the Guardians of Peace, which was the former name, the former name of the police was Gardien la Paix, the Guardians of Peace, is now the force of order. But they're not using force and legitimate defense, but they're using violence. So, and not to create order, but chaos. So it's really like contradictory here. It's really interesting. Like the play of words can be very dangerous. If you can normalize violence by saying, "Oh, yeah, if the police do it, it's the legitimate use of violence. La violence, le monopole de la violence légitime." I mean, and I hear it on and on. And it's interesting because even in French, the word for rape is also viol. And I don't know.
Viol, which you spell Viole, I think, right? Which is, it's like to violate. So you're violating someone.
Yeah, there's no E, but
that's
it's
something
viol.
that is actually kind of beautiful in the language. That the word violence is
Sure.
telling you something, that
Yeah,
something
you're-
is being violated. And
Boom.
what is that?
Exactly. Violation, violence, and
Really?
also when you rape, it's also called violer. You rape my rights in a way. You're violating, but it's raping my rights. You would say in French as well. And back to what you were saying, Oscar, it's really true. You can't defend what you cannot define. Meaning,
Wow.
here,
Yeah.
for
That's
instance,
just
the
a
words.
lot, dude, yeah.
I've met people who
I
like
like your
tell me
pause. Sorry.
they're
go.
gonna work with human rights, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's awesome. That's the most cool thing you can do. And then I ask them, what is a right? And they can't answer me.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I'm like, okay, well, then I don't think you're qualified
Yeah.
to work with it. Yet, it's not that I don't want to encourage you to work with it, but like, if you can't define it, how
Exactly.
how are you ever then you don't know what it is. How can you
Yeah.
how can you
and again,
defend something you don't even know what is? That's
exactly.
insane.
Thus, the importance of words, huh? And in the same way, you can make the parallel. You cannot control the self when you are unable. If you're unable to word or name or identify the emotion you are subject to. You see what I mean? If you can't name or put a label on the emotion you're going through, you can't control your emotion. If you can't name it, again, you cannot. How can you identify or control
Yeah, exactly.
something you can't even name or define? Again, it's self-control. You can have self-control if you're not if you don't have the vocabulary to name or label to put a word on the emotion you're going through.
If people learn how to identify wrongdoing and also identify defensive force against wrongdoing as a right, we're good.
Yeah.
That's what it's about.
That's good. Look, go back to human rights. One of the first human rights. Let's question whether they're working, these human rights, shall we? One of the first
Can you
is
share my slides, Derek?
no one has more rights than someone else. Then are these human rights working? I don't think so. Look around.
No one has the right to. Okay, I'll mute myself.
I can make it bigger if the first thing it says here is like you have the responsibility to respect the rights of others. I can vibe with that. Yeah, I have the responsibility to respect the rights of others and my own rights, of course. But yeah, that I can work with that. It says no one has the right to hold you in slavery. Word. And I don't have the right to hold anyone else in slavery. So I can. That's what I was saying before. Like sometimes what is written down by men is in alignment with truth. Right? And I don't want to rant too much. Sorry if you had more to say, Yvonne. But do you want to go through these, or am I forcing?
Well, they
holding
just
you
make
in slavery?
no. They
Come
just
on, man. Everyone has
make me
something to
laugh.
say, you know, what the hell?
They
Yvonne,
just-
yeah, please.
No, I'm quite happy to do this, Oscar, because it just fucking makes me laugh. No one has the right to hold you in slavery. That's what I'm saying. They're really working, aren't they? So what happens then? So if our human rights are not being adhered to, what do we do about them? Where does this human rights in what
I'm pretty sure it doesn't say in this Declaration of Human Rights how to use defensive force and how that is a right,
Yeah,
and also
exactly.
the right to carry arms. I don't think it says that in the
why is that?
UN, the United Nations Declaration of Rights, but it does say in some other. For example, I'll bring the infamous Aleister Crowley up. Aleister Crowley, he brings it up in his declaration where he says that man has the right to kill those who would thwart these rights. And what are these rights? Are the rights to, work as you want, to rest where you want, to drink what you want. I'm getting a bit drunk here, all these things that are just about you making choices about your own life, what you want to draw and express, what you want to dress like, no one should tell you how to do, like what you should do. They can have an opinion on it, but that's just an opinion. They don't have the right to decide, right? And he explicitly says man has the right to kill anyone who would thwart these rights. That he's telling you it is a right to use defensive force. It doesn't say that in the UN Declaration of Rights. But sorry, that was I was jumping a bit ahead right there, maybe.
Yeah, no worries. But Oscar, honestly, you know, in respects to Nemo, who's not here again, who's the host, founder of Europa Natural Law, we try to keep these things to about a minute and 15 seconds. But that leaves us around, good 5, 10, maybe 15 more minutes to kind of just, reel it back in. Everyone get one more round in to make the last points, or read off for whatever notes or whatever you guys prepared to speak about and share in regarding this topic. And I just wanted to say one thing, because on my channel Awakening Mind, I've been live streaming on there as well, and there's a listener, the Peaceful Penguin, who's been pumping out all types of great comments about rights and all these things. And just to hone it back in, and then I'm going to pass it off to whoever. I think, either Jasper or Vuka, y'all are next. But I like what he says in regards to, like, just a simple definition of a right is that which is morally correct, just, or honorably, a moral or legal entitlement to have or do something, the authority to perform, publish, film, or televise a particular work or event. And I'll add on just real quick that, just it doesn't cause harm to other, it doesn't infringe upon the other rights upon other people. And there's so much fucking gray area with that, because people can be so fucking sensitive and act like, these things offend them and it infringes upon their rights, when they haven't done the shadow work or haven't really set proper healthy boundaries, or actually coming into proper gnosis of self and realize, like, oh, like, that person is doing something, like, maybe it bothers me, but it's not hurting me. And, like, let bygones be fucking bygones. Like, in America and other cultures, like, people police themselves harsher or lesser than different areas of within the country or amongst different countries. And so it's just interesting to see this dynamic of people's tolerance levels and what they actually consider is a right, and how these things are acted upon and played out and portrayed, through all types of charades, or actually proper alignment to what is to be, living with, proper rights that are respected of yourself and other people. So, yeah, who would like to say something?
Shall we kick off the final round? I think what Oscar said, that man cannot make laws, is, in my opinion, correct. Because you can write down stuff that is right, that is correct, that is truthful, yes. But like, don't murder, don't do any harm to sentient beings, don't be a dick, don't has to be written down. And in the law of one, it is explained that, like, Team Lightside doesn't care about written words. They just, like, offer you something, and then you, like, if you want it, you just comply, let's say, or go along with them. And Team Darkside wants fixed contracts. So yeah, we know that from, like, many stories, that only Team Darkside wants written contracts, and usually they are the ones breaking them from on their side. So I think it's rather more important to get the truth, the quintessence of the right. Every action that does not initiate harm and does not result in harm for another sentient being. That is very, very important. And I think it's also very important to start with oneself and to really look around who's hurting us, like theft, taxation, coercion, slavery, etc. And I think it's probably time to think a bit more about the God-given right of self-defense, and that's to like all European people. I think we should really like how to say it, we should really be all held to account to the real laws for what we have done in the last years or decades or so, and then we will very quickly find out who is like a good human being who should be like listened to and should be given like offices or something like that, or a different purpose for the community. And the now very successful but bad people have to look for another job, I guess.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with you, Vuk. That's what it comes down to, the simplicity. Just look around, everyone. All these man-made laws, do they actually ever produce any justice? Or does natural law produce justice? Because if there is, you know that if you've done wrong to someone, it all comes down to consequence. The consequence may appear straight away, or it may take time, but there is always a consequence to wrongdoing. But these man-made laws, there is no justice. There's none at all. And I can't, and I'm being genuine here, I can't think of any man-made law that stops any crime at all. It just don't. It doesn't work. There's no crime.
Only moral education can do that.
No, absolutely. That's what it comes down to, teaching morality. We have to start again and get rid of all these man-made laws, because I was thinking, like in this country, the people that are supposed to uphold these man-made laws, there's not many of them. There's not many of them at all. And all the so-called criminally minded people that do harm, like rape, murder, steal, they know that they're not going to get punished. The only people that benefit are the courts, etc., because they're making loads of money. They absolutely love it. And I was thinking of a little description. So, like, if there was a robber outside my door now, they would probably 9 times out of 10, one, they would never get caught if I rung the police anyway, which I wouldn't. Because there ain't no police around here anyway, there's hardly any. So they would probably get away with it. But if self-defense was allowed in this country and I had a massive gun in my house, I know that if someone was not about to rob my house, they would think twice, because they know that they might get a gun to their head. Whereas if we carry on relying on the authorities that are supposed to be here to protect us, these so-called criminal-minded people, they know they're going to get away with it. So there's no point in it, is there? There's none. So I think self-defense is a good thing to... I know that I wouldn't go out my way to cause anyone any harm. So, yeah, why can't I defend myself? And I think it's the people that are causing harm in this particular country, Oh, let me just tell you one more thing. I come across a magazine today, and it's about hunters. I don't know if you have it in your country. It's about people hunting down foxes, etc. Well, I didn't. Yeah, they hunt them down. They go out. They get great pleasure of just trapping foxes and killing them. And but for years and years and years now, there's been like a group of people in every town. They're called hunt saboteurs, and they actually get together and actually find out where the hunts are happening, and they make sure that the fox is all right, and they stop the hunts. And I was thinking, fucking hell, how many like injustices like are actually going on? That's harm against animals. How much harm is happening with our children? How much harm is happening with poverty? How much harm is happening with other animals in factory farming, etc.? The only real justice that we're going to get is maybe we should get together like these hunt saboteurs and actually go out to the people that we know that they're causing harm. We know that they're causing harm. So I think this is what you're trying to explain. There has to come a time when we actually do take the initiative and take responsibility to stop this harm that's going on with our children and each other. We have to take responsibility.
I totally
Yeah,
agree.
thank you.
I think we should embrace the idea that we can be labeled as dangerous. I mean, in a good way, of course. And then you have to ask yourselves why, for what reason would we be dangerous and for whom? Because that's the whole thing. Being dangerous is not a bad thing in itself. It means
you can, if you're in someone's danger in a way, you can be also in their protection in a way, right? If someone is dangerous with you, that doesn't mean necessarily they're threatening you. It just means
they're not to be messed with.
You heard that song from Peter Tosh, right? I
don't know. But it reminds me also. It's displayed in the series Walking Dead. The first thing that the survivors ask strangers is, "How many did you kill?" And then they ask, "Why?" And that's it. I think it wraps it up. It's like we have to be dangerous, or it's pretty close to having the psychopath.
I'd also like to add some finishing thoughts for this chat, and I know it's been I know this is the end of it because there's an intention of keeping it as short as possible. But I think one thing I'd like to point out is that phonetically, the words right and right, well, I don't know how to pronounce them differently, are the same. They sound the same, and the one word is spelled as the one word we've been talking about, RIGHT, a right, something being right, and the other word is RITE, a right, like a right of initiation. And the reason I want to bring that up is not just because I thought it was funny, but also because I think that is a big puzzle piece. If we want to create a world where people have a deep understanding of what rights are and are able to respect their own and others' rights, then we need rights, not just in the sense that we need to set a good example by behaving right, but also by initiating ourselves, because in this world today, there's no one who I don't suggest trying to find, and maybe that's just me being a stubborn head, but I don't think we need to I don't think we got to find someone out there that can initiate us into the mysteries of morality. I think that was a way once upon a time that you.
Well, there's way showers. I mean, I think you're talking about the savior programming, kind of like what I was talking about a little bit, right? There are mentors that can help us,
Exactly. Yeah, there are way showers. There are mentors, and of course we should not be so stubborn-headed like me that we don't want to ask for help. There's definitely a big power in doing that. You can get so much more forward by asking for help and by following someone's example. I think what I meant is that we don't need to like enter into a lodge or try to like become part of a religion or like follow one doctrine very strictly. I think it's about initiating ourselves and going through the rites of initiation in the sense that we challenge ourselves and we dig deep and we look, for example, at the work of famous people like Aleister Crowley that I was speaking about before when I brought up his book Liber Oz, which is all about rights. Or if we want to look at presentations that are hours long, I mean, there's so many great people who have created content on morality that you can find on the One Great Work Network. That has been, a lot of people's work has been collected one place on a website called the One Great Work Network, or onegreatworknetwork.com. And those aren't the only places. I mean, I would initiate myself by reading the works of the founding fathers. There's a lot of ways where we can do the rites, which are like the going through the door and looking at the way showers. But I think if we want someone to hold our hands while doing it, that's difficult to find. There are some people who are willing to do that, but I think today it's very rare to find, and that's not to say we should just give up on doing that. So yeah, you're right, Derek. We shouldn't just say we're all on our own and stuff like that. But it is our own responsibility, I think, to learn these things and yet to set the good example, of course. But first of all, to find out. And I think the reason that I've moved a bit more forward in my life from where I was before is because I wanted to understand, as you were saying, Yvonne, like how can it be that these man-made laws don't create justice? I wanted to understand that, and then that's how I came to learn more about natural law, which actually is justice. It is, we get what we fucking deserve. So I don't need to swear, but we get what we put out there, right? It's like a mirror.
You can definitely swear, mon frère. And I know you got that divine care, but Jasper.
Yeah. I wanted to answer what you said, Derek, earlier with moral relativism and how
Sure.
things are like, in the based on climate. So I believe, similar to like the rest, is that not believe, I know, but that you know inherently what is right for yourself. Like it's not something that's uniformic, that's for everyone the same. And that might sound more relativistic, but I mean that it is contextual. So you only know what's right for you, not someone else knows that for you. And that is, if you enlarge that, that's also depend on where you live. So what is right is not necessarily right in every context. And yes, you might say that's moral relativism, but it's really like you're attuning to the situation and saying, making the right decision of what to do. But I spawned this from I'm a Gilchrist, who speaks about the right and the left hemisphere, and he done like major study on this. But he really like it's like there's the contextual and the analytical side, and the making the right decision depends on using, for the most part, your right brain. So that's what I had to say. That it's not necessarily pure right on all levels, in the sense of like everywhere it's right. Like I mentioned last time, like here it's right to work on the dikes and protect against the ocean. That's what's right here. But you cannot apply that somewhere in the desert. There in the desert, there's other things, other needs that are right for them. So in that sense, it's in the climate embedded what is right there. So that differs from place to place. But I understand, of course, like principally, yes, there's natural law, and people need to abide to natural law. But I don't see it as the full picture. as well as what I also thought about what the Native Americans they speak about, instead of like people talking about what their right is, what is their obligation? But someone imagines like it's your own responsibility, instead of talking about rights, like, oh, this is my right, and this is my I have a right to this, I have a right to that. Like, what is your obligation to this world? Like, what do you bring? So it's, instead of like, okay, it's about me, it's actually what can I contribute to the world. So that's what I have to share about it. I think that's enough for me.
Right on, brother. Yeah, thank you. I think that kind of wraps it up. But yeah, I feel you, and like, yeah, Jasper, that's definitely what's up, and that's taking it a step further. And I feel like we need to really know ourselves more to get to that point of actualizing our value, and what our cultivated skill sets are, and what we're continuously refining towards any kind of betterment of self, and that ripples out towards what we're working on and what we're helping with, and whatever job you're in, and yada yada, whether it be for the monetary rat race, whatever the hell. Like, yeah, people are kind of stuck in the matrix, whatever the fuck. We're trying to help people and provide some kind of bridge to at least get in and out of that motherfucker until you're able to sustain on your own, if that's even possible. If not, like, for fuck's sake, like, we just need people on the side and within the priorities of true sovereignty and protecting and defending our sovereign uh, God-given rights, if you will, right? Like, and not to be biblical or religious with that term of God. Mais oui, mon ami. But yeah, geez, Oscar, you you definitely said exactly what I was trying to conclude with, and we'll just kind of end it on this, and then we'll say
Oh,
peace.
I stole your joke. Fuck me.
No,
Fuck
it's not a
me.
joke, but
Stole your punchline.
no, not at all. It's great. We're on the same wavelength with these things, and just understanding the linguistics behind in the phonetics, right? Because we do have to come across these rites of passages to understand ourselves, to really write the book of life that is ourselves, and be the true authors or authority of that, right? And not let exterior false figures of authority dictate what our rights are or are not. And I love what Peaceful Penguin was
Yeah,
alluding
very
to in
cool.
a lot of
Also
things
some great
in the
questions
chat. Yeah, yeah.
and
And
writing.
so going back to Mark Passio's work, I mean, just look back at the Natural Law Seminar. It takes 9 hours to watch, and then it takes a fuck ton of extra hours, days, years, however long it takes to integrate these things to come to the proper inner grammar of embodying what it means to understand what your rights are, what the rights are of everyone. We recognize this within ourselves, as above, so below. We can see that within other people. That way, we respect other people's things and this and that. So, with that said, if anyone has any last 5-second little thing, feel free. If not,
Yeah, I
that's all
would
I
like
got.
I would like
Yeah, bro.
to. I would really need further examples of situations in which a right that is applied now would apply differently in another space, location, or in time, different time. Because the example Jasper used as like we need to fight against the water here, which is not the same problem in the desert, and I don't know, and I think there are different needs, but we're not talking about rights here. So I think I don't know if Jasper, you've been through the natural law documentary from Mark Passo. I mean, there are
Yeah, I know
7,
the
8
content.
transgressions, and beyond that, if there's no victim, there's no crime.
No, I think it's not that that it
You-
was moral relativism that was being argued for. I think it was just saying that understanding what is right under natural law is not the end goal. That there's also an individual purpose, but maybe that's what you were saying, Derek. I don't know. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I understood it after Derek spoke. But I was also thinking while you spoke, Jasper, like, what are you saying? But is that correct that you're saying that there's more than just understanding what is right under natural law? There's also
There's
Yeah,
so
it's
much
not
more
just
to understanding
principally-
anything. You know, we're talking about a simple subject for this live stream, guys. You know, keep it within the framework. That's all, right? You know, there's so much more to discuss. We could talk for fucking years, right? So this is just 1 hour and a half, and not to cut anyone off for all that stuff, but
but can I at least like answer, because I was
yeah, Jasper, go for it. Yeah,
yeah, the context definitely like is more like individual, and like
30 seconds if you can, please.
Yeah,
Like,
sure. With the
it's
the
done.
one example, I'll just name one example. Like if you're with children, for example, if you work as a teacher, you're working within a different context than when you're with adults. That's already like a simple one. So you need to address children differently than you have to address people that are at a mature level. So like I've worked as a teacher assistant in the past, and when I worked there with children, I've made many mistakes, and if I made one of those mistakes with an adult, it wouldn't be as severe. But because it's so fundamental to their growth, it has a much larger effect. So for me to be in that situation, I need to be more aware than when I'm in with my friends, which I knew for quite a long time, and we were all well settled with each other. I can speak quite openly, and I can be rude. I can be much more loosely than when I speak with children that I barely know. Like that's another, like, instead of a climate, that will be a different context through age. But you can vary it with like being in the desert with children, or being mature in like near the ocean. So that's putting it together. But I don't know. I just some raw thoughts to put on. I don't know what, but
I mean, we're talking about rights, and I get what you're saying with, you know, respecting people's rights and in their boundaries and their sensibilities. This is kind of like a subject of what we're talking about. But concluding thoughts, you know, like,
yeah, what is
that's
right?
all. Like, thank you so much for tuning in. I gotta cut it off because like it's just going on.
Goodbye. Let's
Thank you so much for listening.
let's pursue the conversation later.
Yeah, Jasper, that's nothing against you, man. Appreciate it, brother. I
Yeah,
appreciate
if
stepping
people
up
want
and
to
all that
join
stuff.
us in the after chat,
Yes.
feel free to join.
Exactly.
On the
Yeah.
Telegram group. It's called Europa Natural Law. Here's the QR code. You can scan. You can find it. And yeah, and have a chat with us more about the topic and other thoughts. But thanks for being the host, Derek.
Yes.
Yeah, you see what happens when Nemo's not here, guys? Like, shit, man. Like, nah. Sacre bleu, piton de merde, mais c'est quoi ça? Ça part dans le bordel. What the hell? I hope everyone is doing well. Peace out, y'all.